Hello, men. Hello, bachelors. Hope you're all doing well today. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about after we get the sound check. Hello, bachelors. Yeah, we got to get the sound check first. Okay, we'll get back to the page. And hello, men. Hello, bachelors. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about moral reasoning, how moral reasoning matters in life. Oops, let me turn off the. Ooh, that's always fun. Let me turn off the. Heater there so it doesn't bother anybody. Moral reasoning, how it matters in life. You're like in the low bar, it says practical reasoning when we were faced with the decision of life, business questions, questions about girls, questions about the act of what you want to do with them. Sometimes we're impulsive about those things. Sometimes we're instinctively, we do them instinctively, but sometimes with the reasoning ape that we are, sometimes we pause and we think for a second, and in that moment we can do a lot of moral reasoning. In that second, men do it better, I think. We can reason things out in our heads, reason why we're doing it. Is it a good decision? Is it a bad decision? Um, Sometimes we err, sometimes we don't. What is moral reasoning? When we're faced with those moral questions in daily life, just as here around here, it's not just about what we want to do or about what we ought to do. Sometimes MGTOWs fall in these certain categories. Sometimes it's about what you want to do. Sometimes it's about what you ought to do. Uh, then we fall into a moral dilemma, asking advice about, you know, from someone older, elder, a male figure in your life is often a good idea in those things. But what is moral reasoning? You know, how do we get it without religion? How do we do it in our lives? Moral reasoning is individual to yourself. It's or a collective practice, however you want to do it. It's up to you. Uh, practicing reason, practical reasoning is what morality is about. Like I said, you're going to stop. You're going to pause. You don't have a whole lot of time to you know examine why you're doing the moral reasoning. Sometimes if you see a wallet on the ground or someone drops $1 or something, you pick it up, you just instinctively hand it back to the person. Some people don't do that. Some people stick it in their pocket. Some people pause, and you can see the dilemma on their faces when they do these things. It's a complex question. We get a lot of dancing around it in MGTOW. What we're considering, how we'll cope with it. Will there be any conflicts about what we're doing? There'll be a distinctive opportunity for you to glean insight from that moment when you do it. Some of the times, I remember a lot of times in my life, a $20 bill, no one's around. What do? Pick it up? I stop, I pause, I look around to see if someone dropped it. I could yell at them, "Hey, brother, you know, did you miss something? You're missing something, buddy." Try to help out. Try to be a decent person. At that point in your life, you're doing moral reasoning. There's nothing real metaphysical about it. We try to explain these things in the metaphysics a lot. Uh, Philosophy, we'll take a philosophical examination of our moral reasoning at the time. By the time you go through that 20-minute process, the $20 bill is going to be it's going to be floating away. How do we define moral reasoning? It's a type of reasoning that's directed towards deciding what you do, you know, and what success you'll have in things. You're always filtering in whether I be successful at this, whether it's parachuting and out of a plane or whether you're making decisions at work or life or in your personal life, those kind of things. Of course, your reasoning is going to fall back on a lot of stuff that you've learned before, theoretical practices of what you've been taught in life. Moral reasoning is most of the time required by us. It's natural and it's purely sometimes theoretical. Uh, it's a funny thing when we do these things. We're reasoning things out, and you can go on the Google machine and punch this stuff in, and you'll get like 1,000 different articles about ethics, how to understand moral reasoning, how to involve forming judgment in your life, and what you ought to do with these, with your morality. Sometimes it's from religious individuals. Sometimes it's with people like me and people that we meet around here. Is there a standard morality or a practice around here? What is taboo? What is not taboo? I think we see all these arguments ongoing and ongoing, and in this manosphere or this atmosphere that we're in. Sometimes I laugh because men are without moral judgment and moral reasoning. They steal something from another man and you justify it by, yes, if I can, and force, and I did, and that makes it okay. Sometimes people lie. Uh, they lie about a lot of things. There's philosophical views on these things, and I think Marcus goes over a lot of the philosophical views on moral reasoning, a lot of them. And sometimes we take it way into like the Thomas Aquinas. Sometimes it's easy as Hobbes or Jung or some of those, you know John Paul Sartre, stuff like that. Go read some John Paul Sartre. The empirical challenges of moral reason. There's going to be challenges in these things that you draw up from moral reasoning. There'll be norms, and there's certain kind of thinking, and it includes a like they say, an ethical thinking. Most of the time, you want to reason tactically, but you don't want to seem to come off as tactical. And I know. There's a lot of things go on in our brain while we're doing this simple pause, this simple act. I stopped, I paused. Should I pick up the wallet? Should I pick up the $20 bill? Should I take it to the clerk? Does someone need it? All these things are going through my head. We've all ran into these situations in life. There's been a lot of studies on it. You can get it all over the internet. I can go anywhere on the internet and get oversaturated with subjective moral reasoning, with objective moral reasoning, with a lot of things. But most of the time, it's just going to leave me dumbfounded, and the haystack is going to bury me of knowledge, and I'll become desensitized to the hypothetical theories and the moral scenarios of life. And I'm I don't want to do that to myself, but sometimes I want to learn and take a look at other people's perspectives on how they do this thing, how they go about life. What were the borders that were crossed? We often talk about what are those borders in Monkgtow that we don't cross. Some people talk about it in the doxing. Some people talk about it, and you don't steal others people's work. The pooning, all that stuff. The keck. It leaves me dumbfounded sometimes. What are the social norms within Monkgtow? Should I be optimistic about staying here, or should I be negative and consider leaving a better community, a better place, a place where people don't think about these things all the time? Yeah, we go through a lot of that stuff in Monkgtow. You're going to have situations in moral reasoning too. You're going to come face to face with it. Today, I did a little thought about about why I was mad because someone stole my stuff, and then he came back and almost laid it back on me, and I thought, Jesus, oh man, that's not right. And I had to do some considerations about what's good for the community, what's good for me. Sometimes I slip. You know, we see a lot of moral skepticism and moral relativity, and a lot of these people, it's all skeptical. It's all subjective. It's all relative, and it usually bothers me, and it makes me crazy. Morality is not nor relative, nor can you be skeptical about being moral. It's not nobody else's responsibility to figure it out either. It's your responsibility to figure this thing out. Let me stop for a second and see who's in the room, and say hello, bring my screen back up, and say hello, Ra, the dark side of Monkgtow. Yeah, we're in the dark side of Monkgtow. Hello, Monkgtowica. Always good to see you. Um, who else? Veritech Ace. Greetings from Veritech Ace. Trim Hits. Always nice to see you, Trim. Monkgtowica again. And we got a small crowd. It's kind of late, but I just didn't want to go to sleep on the note I was on. I wanted to talk it out in my head. Um, and it's about me. This whole thing is about me sometimes, about how I'm going through these things in my head, the acts that I need to do. How do I keep myself safe? How do I keep myself safe in MGTOW so other people don't start influencing me, or what I do here, how to keep my channel safe? What extent will I go to keep my channel safe? It seems like for me, it just seems like, man, how did I get such a pick target? People with strong views always, they always get the lunatic fringe and the stalkers, like I have now, the Dannies and the all those stalkers that I have, mind frames and Dannies. They won't seem to leave me alone. There's always some sneaky little thing they're trying to do, and they don't think I see it. And these people are like that. They're the pot smokers of the world that, they don't believe everybody, they don't believe other people see the sneaky little bullshit they do in life. And, I used to have these two cats at work, like, speaking of moral reasoning. They would call it back in the 80s when marijuana was highly illegal. Uh, they would call it by different names, Mary Jane or Hooch or something like that, and they would talk out loud, and we're gonna go get some hooch on the break, and and get, and they come up with the silliest, and they didn't think anybody else seen that, and it just was so like, wow, man, you guys got to check yourself. What do the contemporary advocates of moral reasoning think about the correct perception of the moral relevant facts of the whole thing? That's some highly in depth questions I ask myself late at night when I probably should be getting ready. I got a doctor's appointment, and I got to work, and all kinds of things tomorrow morning. And it's quite it'll be quite a day, and I usually get a little stressed before I have to go to the doctor, hence my inability to sleep, and thinking about morality. What if there's a lot of questions to ask in these things, and late night around MGTOW is usually a good time to do that. Get centered with yourself, and we look at the addressing the moral questions surrounding whether society, you know, ought to enforce things, and things like, we think about things like surrogate motherhood and baby mama care, and we talk about all these things. Are these on shaky grounds? We see most of the time they are, and we look out at the resources in the community, and sometimes we get quite dismayed. The government's building huge buildings, and they want to tax me and take everything I own, and so they can build their buildings. What about me? Sometimes it's asked, and we have to do a little moral reasoning in that. Should I cheat on my taxes? Try to pay for something. Why does the government deserve those high taxes? You become cynical as an individual, and it inhibits your process of the process of research you're going to do, whether you're harming yourself or you're the we do things, even with the doctor tomorrow. We do, should I put it off, and should I suffer a little more, or can I get over this myself? And we're conflicted, money issues, and all these things bombard our sensory input, and they make for a stressful day. And Monkgtow, we try to think about the stress of everything, the stress that it would, we impose on ourselves by, even trying to do normal things like walk through this world, without getting hurt, and we impose stress on ourselves, and we all know what happens. Cortisols go through our body, and you feel worse, and you feel tired and lethargic and all those things, and you want to take it away, and you just want to make all this shit stop sometimes, and all the stress and all that. But what can we learn from it? A lot of people don't really. They what are you gaining from this whole thing? What moral insight can you gain from doing an introspective study on your moral reasoning? Everybody will go, oh, no, no, no. Don't go down that road. It's all subjective. Just do what you want. It's hedonism. Uh, there's certain implications of these things on you, and I wish I could relieve the stress when it comes around at a moment's notice. I wish there was some magic way to do that. I guess the dope smokers do that with dope, and the sex addicts do that with sex, and the the beer drinkers and the alcoholics do that on a moment's notice with alcohol, and all those things that we we contemplate in this universe. And I know they're in moral quandary themselves, when they're considering doing these things, and they've been told before, don't go out and pound a bottle of whiskey and be walking around the neighborhood. Some guys drink 3, 4, 5 bottles of whiskey a week, and you're wondering what they're drinking away. Man, I wish I could help you with that. I just wish I could jump into your life and give you those big metaphysical hugs that's needed. When I look at Paul Elam, all I see is sad. Or not Paul Elam, Paul Wilson. All I see is sadness. I like to try to help with that. I'm going through moral quandaries myself here. How do we morally interface with this world? How do we do that? The conditions are often different for each person. The strategy, they're obtuse. I can't see other person's strategies while they're forming moral conditions of their lives. I often ask that with my ex-wife. I wish I could have seen the moral strategies as she was forming the conditions of what would affect my life for many years to come. Hmm. Hmm. It's deep, deep questions we have in here. I wanted to just do this about MGTOW, but it goes on and on and on, and you start thinking about other things, and the moral theories you keep in practice in your life. you know what level do you take these things? Do they grow at a level, or they shrink at a level? Does it come up and down? Where am I at in this condition? Is there red alert where I have to throw away morality and do something hostile, or do something to protect myself? That's where most people are in this day. They're practicing the moral, the reasoning in their brain. They stop, they thought, they go into panic mode. And it's sad when you think about when you can actually think about be aware of others, people around you, and how they feel, and how they how they react, be aware of whether they're delusional or whether they're thinking clearly, you know, all those things. Hello, Ra. Hello. We are told to man up and tradcuck and mangina henchmen, having having out manhood questions and defining the gynocrat's dark side, calling of nihilism and all that. Oh, good comment. Streaming from your kitchen today? Yeah, I'm streaming from my kitchen now. It's 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 just it feels more natural. I don't know, and uh, yeah, hello Veritech. Yeah, I'm streaming. I bought a cover, one of those backdrops. I just have to figure out how to hang it in back of myself so nobody knows where I'm streaming from. Hello, Sooth Slayer. Uh, yeah, today we're talking about practical reasoning, moral reasoning. What do we do when we come to that moment in our lives that the decision matters? That split second that you're making a decision in your life. There's a lot involved in that process. And sometimes these decisions go over a period of days. You're thinking about it, you're stressing yourself about things that you should do, you shouldn't do. And it all gets so overtaxing. Hello, Jenny. I invite just stop inside again. Yeah, thank you, Jenny. Hello. And I often contemplate these things late at night. The general philosophy and questions that keep my life in order. I know there's a lot of great philosophers out there. Uh, that did natural and moral reasoning, which ones, Jung, Hobbes, Foucault. I think Foucault was one of the best at moral reasoning, although he didn't get time to let that play out in his life. What happens to you? Is this thing's relevant when you consider it, or does it just go by a flyby? I guess that's where we'd look at psychopathy and is is it essential to have morality in your life? I hear that question a lot. You know, I hear that question a lot. Nothing crystallizes into a solid in my mind when I get that question. What sort of moral reasoning do I use? Do I use a religious sort of moral reasoning or any kind I want? Usually I use a philosophical moral reasoning. Is this right? Is this right for me? How does this affect me? And I talked about the level that I would have to rise myself to sometimes to obtain things what you want. You're not very happy sometimes when you have to in this world. It's all you get what you take sometimes, and you bend a little. What were your motivations when you bend a little? I also often talk about corruption, and the root of most corruption is what I would do for my family, my friends, my loved ones, my wife. What would I do? We ask ourselves that question when we're in a position of when we're in that position of conflict. We consider all these things that may arise. Well, how's this going to affect my daughter, my life, my lover, my queen? Most of the guys in the world do that kind of thinking. Uh, in We justify things in our brain sometimes when we do those things. We add others, and if it works out okay, it's like, man, that was okay, and I got away with it once. But I wouldn't suggest continually doing those things that we know are corrupt and everything. That's where politicians often fall prey to their own greed. Does moral reasoning include learning process and experience? I would say that pragmaticism dictates that there's a learning process, and that we have to do. Pragmatism dictates that we will uh, we will have a better moral reasoning from the experiences we have in our life. How we do that, what we do it. what we uptake, what we make our own, and what we leave aside. That depends on your. I guess that depends on your upbringing, and I'm really not a person that believes in blank slate theory. Blank slate theory being a child is a blank slate, and he becomes what his environment does. I've seen I've seen cases, not very rare, where a child is raised in utter poverty and comes out to be a perfect human being. Uh, he develops a moral reasoning from how he takes things in. If he lashes out has his hardships, or does he learn from his hardships? We try to do that in MGTOW here. You know, uh, some of us, some of us accused of being the moral agents, of everything MGTOW, and the gatekeepers of uh, of the patriarchy, which is funny. This, and I think what they really mean is stronger personalities. Uh, and that is funny. Stronger personalities sometimes overwhelm people. Situational recognition would come into play in that, and how I recognize whether this is just a stronger personality and I should just kind of think of it a different way. I calculate these sort of things, and I often talk about utilitarianism and stuff like that, and how can you measure a man? Most people in the utilitarian moralism measure the man by his worth. Donald Trump must be a good man because he's rich. That's not really true, I would say. And we're finding out a lot about that stuff nowadays. Being rich doesn't make you moral. It just made you lucky in some cases. Your luck didn't run out in some cases. There's crucial questions we ask ourselves about these things. Forming your opinion on utilitarianism. I think utilitarian is the root of all evil. It puts men in those situations where they are utility slaves for the conquerors, or the stronger ones, and sometimes it's hard for the person in a weaker, less dominant position to be in that position, and sometimes it's hard for the person in a more dominant position in utilitarianism to do those things, and they have to struggle with that. They have to struggle through these things that they do. These decisions that they make. We get into the ideas. When I look at certain things, and some seem ordinary, but when I look around about the manosphere and everything, there's some things have deceptive features to them, and then I place into my head, uh, you know, are those moral? Are these relevant? What are these people thinking? I can see the deceptive features behind it, or I can see the metaphysical sort of thinking, the magic thinking behind some of the things men say, and I don't generally, that's a moral decision in itself. Sometimes I could go off on 'em and say, yeah, blah 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 blah, and I generally don't. And I hold my emotions in those situations back, and I try to give a logical answer. But most of the internet's about letting somebody else know what bad they're doing. The social justice warriors and the watchers. They're always telling Joe, you can't swear like that. Joe, you can't do that. You can't talk about girls like that. I usually don't talk about women. Uh, I have no problem with that, what they're doing over there. Just let them do that over there. I don't care. Uh, that doesn't influence me much over here once I became this thing that I am, this MGTOW that I am. And I doubt that some days. I doubt, like today, I doubt whether this group is right for me, not whether I'm right for the group. I kind of know I'm right for the group, but whether this group anymore is right for me, whether this is good for me, whether it provides stress in my life. I have some concerns about those things. Whether I should just be stoic and stick it out, or whether I should start another channel and just move on. Say, see ya, Joe's fishing channel's up, and I know I'd be do much better in them places. Them things that are generally easy. I know that around YouTube, around them, around even in my life, taking the easy road sometimes is simply giving the people what they want, and no matter whether you have to bend what your moral features, whether your features of morality become salient, and I talked about salience once. I don't think anybody got it. Most of the time, I don't expect people to get it around here, and it's all about the keck and the entertainment. And if I'm not putting a funny little plant dancing around or a dancing baby on my video, then it's just not considered the right kind of entertainment, and I'm not considered the right kind of monk. But all those things go through my head sometimes. It's uh, it's uh it's pretty interesting. It was an interesting place to be around where I can think about things around like-minded men like myself. And MGTOW messenger, and I often talk about these sort of things for years on end. Sometimes we talked, and we worked through these things and how we were feeling, what we were doing, the moral reasons why we thought it was necessary to do what we did in life, and whether it was. And sometimes there was shame, sometimes there wasn't no shame, and sometimes we were dead on the money. I'm dead right about this. There's there's a sort of peculiarism in your thinking, whether you deny it or not, whether you're looking at things implied or applied. There's this funny sort of thing that goes on every second of the day. I used to think about how to slow life down, and how to do that thing, and I often thought, as I was just going to notice everything I did for 11 seconds in the world, whether I was walking in, and then take note and then write that down and think about all the practices and everything that went through my head, and what I was thinking. And usually, if I was walking in with the grocery bags, where I put the grocery, why I put it there, was that in somebody's way? Was there any help when I laid the grocery bags down? Was I going to do that myself? Was it fair that I did that myself? All these thoughts you have when you walk through the door with 10 grocery bags in your hand, the little plastic ones, and you try to get to the area that's clear enough to drop it. You slow your world down and start thinking about the particularism of these things, and your thoughts, and the conflicts and the reasoning, and you'll find that man, there's a lot of millions and millions and millions of thoughts each and every day, and some of them you do intrinsically, without any thought. Sometimes you do it, you stop and you pause. And that's what this video is about, that moment where you stop and you pause and you think about something, whether it's good for you, whether you're examining it correctly. Uh, and that's what I'm doing today. I'm examining whether MGTOW is good for me anymore, or has MGTOW just become a stressful place, where really mean people reside, and people don't have any good sense anymore, and men don't act like men, and they act more like little girls, and it all gets so taxing. Hmm. Hello, Sooth. I appreciate that. I appreciate that statement. Hello, Monkgtow Warrior. Hello, everybody else that's in on this late night broadcast of Joe flipping through the thoughts in his mind. I hope this sort of thing helps you, helps me out to go through these thoughts sometimes. I have a complex day tomorrow. And what went on this week really didn't help. I have to think about, I have to think about my actions sometimes too. I do these deep introspections and I think about, did I deserve this? Was I fault? What part did I play? We like to relieve ourselves of all those, moral conditionalities, say, I'm the best guy in the world. I know I'm not the best guy in the world. And I'm not the worst guy in the world. I'm not a stupid man. Another Nielsen asked, what state should MGTOWs move to? We talked about that. I thought it was North Dakota or a state like that. Upwards. Uh, what's another state up there? God, I can't change that quickly in my mind to becoming a geographer. like SFM say, I'm not a geographer, damn it. No, I thought North Dakota would be nice. South Dakota, somewhere with less population. If MGTOWs were going to start migrating to a state like some other groups have done that before, and so we can influence the vote and stuff like that, and we can make a place for ourselves that's more honest and realistic. I think a state with less population. Now we start thinking about the North and the hardships up there. Men are really prepared for the hardships of those things. And I don't think a lot of females would be following us into a snowy, desolate state. So, but a place where we can pick, I think a township or at least a county. If MGTOW's focused on saturating a county, so we can make, we would have decisions on the rules that they impart upon us. That would be a good thing. Yeah, it's a thought worth having. We're pretty moral men. That was the thing. Moral reasoning. I don't think some of us are, some of us aren't, and that's what I'm reasoning out right now. I'm doing the thing in my head. Whether MGTOW's good for me anymore, whether it's just providing stress. You know, I don't know. I don't know the answers to all the questions. But I do think North Dakota. There was a vote recently in one of the states up there, North Dakota or South Dakota, where MGTOWs really could have helped out. It was issue 6 on the ballot in that state, and that was 50-50 custody for kids, for your kids. I think we had a place where we can go. We've seen what happened with those things. The lawyers and the city workers and everybody just kind of dominated the scene, and they took over and they broke a lot of rules and practices, and they did things that they probably shouldn't to get the vote put down. Lawyers, they they rely on divorce. They rely on broken families to make a living, and that's probably the most despicable trade of all is a lawyer. Uh, if they did business law or they did legal law, what do we do with our thieves and how do we punish our thieves and stuff like that? How do we punish people for the deeds they do? If they'd stick with that stuff, but no, they want to get in your family and hijack the family thing so they can make money off of it. Most of us would just call that shilling, but we could have affected that vote, Measure 6 up in Minnesota. What was that at? South Dakota. Uh, if we would, if we could get this thing together that much, I would think that would be the major question, whether MGTOWs can actually get anything together, work together. Lately, I've seen none of that. Uh, I've seen mostly what I see all my life, that I have to separate myself from certain things and certain people so I can make decisions independently from the masses, so I can protect myself. That's what this is about, moral reasoning and the decisions I'm going to make soon. Uh, but I don't want to go on forever and ever here. I probably could, but I just wanted to do a little late night purge on my soul, and does and everybody think? I don't know if anybody, do you think morality is important? Is it subjective? Whether you think that or not, you're still have going to go through, you still will have to daily reconcile with your thoughts, daily reconcile. Most people will with their moral reasoning on a drop of a dime. Not a female dime, but there'll be questions you'll ask yourself every second. Are you running on pure instinct? Is it that subjective that the whole society is running on pure instinct? I think that's what it is. The intuition of it all. You just run on intuition. Now, if your learning base and your moral curve is set pretty good, you can run on intuition. I don't do this. I don't do that. What extent will I take it? What level will I raise the bar? Uh, when I go code red, if you start a new channel about something else, I'll sub. Well, I appreciate that. I'll let everybody know if I do them things and where I go if I do go. Um, but I do have to consider myself, and I know you guys understand that if I'm going to continue just being attacked and under assault for ageism, which I'm not really that old, uh, if these morally incompetent people, the dolly diddlers and the tranny lovers and the subjective people that don't have no morality in their life keep attacking me on silly garbage, I have to consider myself. And I know I do very well on other channels in the past. Like I said, I had Joe's Fishing Channel, 30,000 subs. So I dumped that so I can do MGTOW. Uh, Probably would have been a better decision. Would have been a moral decision, a better moral decision for myself just to keep that, uh, to keep going on. And I didn't know YouTube was going to start paying money or I didn't really care, and but it would probably been a better decision for myself. And when I look back at the poor decisions I make in my life, I slap myself in the head a little bit. I'll give myself a metaphysical slap. Why you're so foolish. You trusted people that you trusted. That was the big thing. You trusted these men to do and act like they said they were going to act. But we hear a lot of lies around here. We see the shilling. And I was thinking about a lot of that today, and I had a really great monologue going for that. And I just put all that reasoning together. But then it got late, and I started, drifting a little. Uh, a lot of big questions in life. Questions that's going to influence, your future. I always talk about that, start thinking about things now that's going to influence your future and put the one foot in front of the next, and take positive steps for that thing. And then sometimes I find myself lacking in the same things I preach. We all do. We're not perfect. None of us are perfect. um, except maybe Matthew McConaughey. Matthew McConaughey may be perfect. I don't know. The guy's, I know that bothers SFM. He's going to look back at this tomorrow and go, son of a. I just say that as a joke. None of us are perfect. I've been thinking over the whole week about the human condition and how we believe sometimes in the human. And it just comes one truth that humanity and most of mankind is seriously flawed. We're all seriously flawed. When I look over the news, and I try not to look at much news when I'm going through the moral reasoning and the introspections that I'm going through now. Spring's coming up, and I have to think about what I want to do for work, and there's a lot of decisions, and I have a truck to get up, and whether those things fall through or I end up not eating, that all depends on me. There's no one here to back me up. There never was. There never has been. I realized that at the divorce. There was never nobody here for me. Never has been, never will be. All those decisions land squarely on my lap. I feel like that little boy that was born in a junkyard sometimes, raised by rabid dogs and a hippie commune. Yeah, it's already. I know it's intense, and when Joe goes into his thought process. I have had an interesting life, and I wish I could share some of that in book form for you sometimes. Over the last 6 or 7 years, I've lost the ability to write articulately, so I have to do a writing course again at a certain point. I know you've all seen my comments when I'm just like, fuck it. I got the efforts. But I mean, them are things I have to think about. What's my best skill? What do I do the best in this whole world? When I go forward into ageism, into this maturation that's coming quickly upon me. I have to start thinking about myself more, because no one else in this whole world cares about me. That's a pretty sad thought. Most of the world would probably be just as happy to see me and you and all of us just go away and die. Except for Dougie. He loves me dearly. He's out there barking. He wants to come in now. I neglected him today. I had to make his dog food out of some turkey that I had in the freezer, and some rice and some vegetables, because I failed to order the dog food for the month. I haven't been to the grocery store for like a month. I just can't put myself through going to the grocery store. It's all become so tiresome in this, looking at people and dealing with people. I hate people. Dougie is a simp. He's been pretty good. He's been the weather went above 30, and now he sits outside and he enjoys it because he's got a fur coat. I was born with a half a fur coat. You should see my back. Small animals can make nests in my back hair and just dig in there and be happy. I always joke about that. But yeah, it's a difficult period of time sometimes for all of us. All of us Monkgtows go through things, and there's periods of doubt, periods of inspection, periods of reflection, how we think about the world, where this process has got us that we put ourselves in the past, and I can't change that. Sometimes I wish I could time warp back and tinker with a few things and say, ha, I did it right. Cheat the world, and but I can't. There was some people that said they did time travel. I think that's very interesting. Like to have some time to really, really inspect that thing one day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year. Just look at those people that say they were able to time travel. You get the luxury of of just looking at it and enjoying what you're reading, and asking yourself questions: is this true? Is this not true? Is this Does this run to a true? What's the syllogisms on these things? You know, I do those things. I don't know if you do those things, uh, but yeah, yeah. And all those decisions you make will come down to one thing: that moment of moral reasoning. Most times, that moment where you stop and you pause and you consider. That may wake up a whole new set of rules. You might get a thought. I'm having thoughts right now about a lot of things, uh, about my future, about Monkgtow's future, whether I'm included. You know, you would think that some of these people, whether they're doing it for malicious reasons or vindictive reasons, whether they're just a bunch of blue pill white knights from some church that were hired to torment Trav. That's usually what it ends up to be. Some holier than thou rollers from some political movement or some church that got a great idea that they would torment some guy on YouTube, which is crazy in itself. You see a lot of crazy, in here, out in the world. I see this in the real world too. I just watched a bunch of Christians, marching in front of a Muslim mosque, screaming things, that were irrelevant. You're all you're all migrant workers. You suck. They're not migrants. They just chose a religion, and it wasn't yours. You didn't have a decision in that. That's what got them so mad. They didn't have a decision in your decision. We see this around politics too. People are all mad. You didn't let them make that decision for you, because they're so important in your life. Them are the things you have to filter through on some of this stuff. Was that person really so important in my life? And basically, I could toss all this away if I wanted to, and on a single heartbeat, move on and do something else. But I'd miss everybody. I would, because there are some people around here that are important to me, that I care about deeply, and I want them to see them do better in life, and I hope I inspire them to do better. I think I try. I don't even know if that chat's working. Lately, my chat, I've been staring at it and nothing's happening, and I was like, oh, that must be not working again. I don't know. Uh, it is working. No one's. Everybody's asleep. The beard of wisdom. Thanks, Nielsen. I actually had a. I actually have been getting. When I did that and redid that, I actually had an ad that was like, wow, look, I have an ad. I'm not such a bad guy. The ad people have deemed in their great wisdom that I'm worthy of getting an ad. I can't remember what it said. I should have looked deeper. Son of a bitch, you know how it is. So, moral reasoning. What's your moral reasons for doing things? Stop and think about that moment. Uh, it's working. A chat doesn't move means people are seriously listening to. Oh, that's nice. Thanks, Wish Wish. When I think about moral reasoning and the things that I think about and everything, the first thing I think about is that moment, that exciting moment. It's a very exciting moment when you're in conflict and you have to cope, and you're doing that 1 second where you're going to make that decision, and you got like a split second to make that moral decision, and everybody's looking at you, and you're trying to glean some insight from the universe, and Please help me out with this, and it's exhilarating. And we usually, some people don't do those things that I do. I don't know why. Some people run on intuition, this ability to think with their lower brain set, their lizard brain, and some people run with that through life. We talk about them all the time. It's quite a peculiar thing when you see it. How do you characterize these things that you think about in that moment? That's an exciting moment. I wish I could slow down and stop and do that 11 seconds of thought in that moment and write it down in a book. There's thousands of words and the processes that go on, and remember all of them, and just make, Joe's 11 seconds of Joe's life within a moment of moral reasoning when he was in conflict. Oh, I think it would make a good pamphlet. Pamphlets. You don't see pamphlets around anymore. Pamphlets are interesting. I love pamphlets. Used to love read every pamphlet I can find on the bus. I'd be reading the pamphlets as a little kid. My brother would be collecting them up, and hey Joe, here's a pamphlet. What is this one on? Vaginosis. Cool. Pamphleteering. Yeah, we don't hear that word anymore. Pamphleteering. That's what we did before the internet was around. When we, men's rights causes and basically the big three: atheism, religion, racism, and people's rights. They used to pamphleteer that stuff all around. Once in a while, you'd find an interesting brochure on vaginosis. It was gold. I gold. But yeah. I've tried to be funny, and I hope I'm providing some entertainment with my humor. But yeah. What do you do in those moments of conflict? Does life slow down for you? Slows down for me. Uh, yeah. I think I'm going to get myself a cup of tea and try to get some sleep. I got to be at the doctor's office at 9:15 in the morning. It's 12 already. That leaves me 9 hours, 8 hours to get ready. That means an hour of struggling and rolling around, like trying to get comfortable. Maybe I'll just sleep in my big fat chair, my fat ass chair that's molded to my body tonight. Set the alarm clock. Try not to think too much. And with that, I think I'm going to shut this thing down and say, hey, MGTOWs, I wish I knew the future so I can, come and proclaim that everything was going to be all right in your life and everything was going to be all right in my life and with MGTOW, and the world would accept us, and it'd be a happy, joy place. And, Marcus comes around and says something nice and gives you a beer. I wish I can proclaim that, but I can't. And lately, it's been difficult to see anything positive around here, except for you guys. You guys are positive. 8 hours of sleep and 1 hour of prep. Yeah, I got to take my shower, and then luckily the doctor's office is like right up the street. So I jump on my bike and I ride up the street and try to get some exercise. I have to remember to drink water. Yeah, that's the only decision I have to make in the morning is take a shower and drink some water straight from the tap while I'm doing it. And yeah, I'm allowed to do that because I'm single. I could drink beer in the shower too if I want to anymore. When I was married, my wife used to yell at me for that all the time. I take a beer in the shower, And then I'd leave the cans in there, and then she'd be like, yeah, 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 yeah. I was like, man, I love drinking beer in the shower. Sometimes that's the only place I got a little bit of sanity, a little bit of and beer tastes better in the shower, whether you believe it or not. Beer tastes better in the shower. I would suggest everybody go do that. So that's the tip for life. That's a tip for life from Joe. If you got a free moment after work, take your beer, get in the shower, and drink it and see if it does taste better. I guarantee it will. But with that, I'm going to quit being silly, and I'm going to quit being silly and probably try to get some sleep, let Dougie in, and shut down the house and try to fade away into some kind of peace. Like I say, I'm happiest when I'm asleep. And I wish the world wasn't that way where I could be happy when I'm awake. But most of us men are never going to get that opportunity. And but Monkgtow helps. Monkgtow helps. And thanks a lot, each and every one of you, for coming around and listening to my rants. Like I say, without you guys, Monkgtow wouldn't be Monkgtow. And I do mean that. Uh, Thanks a lot for being bright, intelligent men that think about things and consider others. And with that, just thanks a lot for being MGTOWs. MGTOW.